So, welcome to Cheskin Chats. We are so excited to bring some wisdom and information from Dr. Larry Cheskin. With over 30 years of background in obesity, he's published over 200 peer-reviewed articles and done many studies on obesity. Welcome to Cheskin Chats, Dr. Cheskin. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we're really excited. One of the things that is one of the most important things to talk about for me, not just as somebody who's hypoglycemic, but my family has diabetes. On my father's side, there's a lot of diabetics. And obviously, diabetes is exploding in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And you have so much training and knowledge and have done so many studies on type 2 diabetes. Would you share with us what you see as the most viable, efficient, long-term, effective treatment for type 2 diabetes?
In short, for many people, the most effective treatment is losing weight. And not everyone with type 2 diabetes has a weight problem, but the strong majority do. And that is something that makes a large impact. And even when we examined my clinic outcomes, those people who were able to reduce or stop diabetes medications, it really didn't even take an enormous amount of weight loss to do that. Those people who were on insulin, an average of 11% weight loss. So a 200-pound person losing 22 pounds would be the average amount needed to get off of insulin. And that's a big change in their quality of life.
So most people don't know that. And it's not just a change in quality, right? I mean, when you'd have patients come in, were they aware that they could actually, in essential, they're reversing their disease state to a healthy state, right?
Yes, or they're certainly setting back the clock. And, some people don't like to say that you've cured diabetes, but if you're no longer needing medicines and your blood sugar is normal, effectively, you've gotten rid of your diabetes. It can always return, and there's a natural progression of the disease, but at least in the clinic population that we saw, getting off insulin on average took 11% weight loss.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically, if you're overweight and type 2 diabetic, and you lose 11% of your body weight, you can effectively get off medications, that's what you saw, and no longer be type 2 diabetic. And then how do they manage it? So you're helping them get off of it. You did this study that you worked with people to help them. How do you do long-term? What was their results long-term?
So just to clarify, it varies on the medicine. So there are various percentages of average weight loss needed to get off or reduce the doses of various medicines. But we're just saying that people who were successful, and many people are not successful, that was the average amount of weight loss that was needed to do that. And as you rightly bring up, it's not going to be sustained unless you keep the weight off. And that means that you have a second task that's somewhat different from the original task. It's one thing to lose weight. It's a somewhat different thing to maintain that weight loss and having effective help to do so. And the motivation, I think, in many cases comes from having that initial success. You got off insulin. That's pretty motivating. And maybe then you're more likely to be able to sustain it because you don't want to go back to the situation you were in earlier.
Wow. Hopefully that would be enough to drive someone to maintain it. Tell me a little bit about the ADA study that you did with type 2 diabetics. Would you share just a little bit about that?
Yes, and this was a more pragmatic comparison of, we often give recommendations to people. You should eat this way, you should eat that way, and don't have any sugar. There's different fashions over the years of whether with type 2 diabetes you can have sugar at all and how much. But the bottom line was that the study we did compared using standard ADA recommendations for diabetes control versus providing portion-controlled meal replacements. And we found basically there was a better effectiveness with portion-controlled meal replacements being used as opposed to dietary advice.
Because why would you say that's true? Because you worked with a lot of diabetics, and I actually have too. But from your perspective as a scientist and as someone who's studied so many people, what's the difference between a diabetic doing weight loss and doing a program to help themselves versus somebody who may not have that issue?
Well, I'll preface my answer to that question by saying the unfortunate reality is that people with type 2 diabetes generally do less well in any attempt to lose weight, whether it's with medicines, whether it's with diet, etc. And it's not that well understood why that's the case, but it is. And so that you need to do things that are perhaps even more aggressive and persuasive and long-lasting to have the same results as a person who doesn't suffer from type 2 diabetes. So given that it's harder to lose weight with type 2 diabetes, this was just one study that showed that it is still possible and that you get better results if you're given food rather than just told what you should be doing. And that's what portion-controlled meal replacements do. They kind of make it a little bit easier to comply with the dietary recommendations because, it's the difference between going to a restaurant and whatever they plop in front of you is what you're going to eat versus weighing it out and doing it carefully. And portion-controlled meal replacements are that kind of intervention. It's weighed out and measured, and the composition is such that if you follow it, you will lose weight.
And just to wrap up this, but on the end of that, I remember seeing the study, just to tie into what you just shared, that you took that last group that had gotten off medications, that had success using meal replacements, and you broke that group into two. So half of them no longer used the meal replacements, and the other half kept using them. And do you remember what the results were from that? Because I can tell you, because I do remember. But
Yes. So basically, that whether you're using the meal replacements or not makes a difference both in the short term and in the more intermediate to long term.
Yeah, because those people who stopped using the meal replacements found themselves back at their old habits, and they all had to go back on their medications. That's what I remember seeing. So basically, in a way, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, that their food is their medicine. The food becomes the medicine that allows their blood sugars to stay balanced. And if they cannot manage the food that they're eating, the tendency is what you're saying for diabetics will go back to their habits.
Yes. So in general, I would say that what works, you want to keep doing. What doesn't work, you don't want to keep doing. So if you've lost weight through a certain technique, you can't just go back to business as usual. And maybe you don't have to be quite as strict as you were with the initial weight loss, but you need to do something on an ongoing basis that adheres to the same principles that helped you be successful in the first place.
Yeah. And then just as a side note, food is much less expensive actually now than even treating the disease with the medications that they're using.
Yeah, the cost of medicines is certainly skyrocketing, particularly in the US and the developed world. And that is a cost. And perhaps more important is how you feel and what your health and your future health will be. But there's no doubt that costs are an important component of healthcare.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, it's good to know too, though, that there's that solution of let your food be your medicine. I mean, that's basically what you're saying, is that if someone can gain control over what they put in their mouth and learn, but they do need to understand what is going to help them get healthy versus what's going to help them continue on the path of diabetes, right?
The only thing I would add is we don't want people to stop taking their medicine because they're going to lose weight and that's going to fix it. It doesn't always work, and you first want it to work before you stop your medicines. So please listen to your doctor's advice and keep taking your medicines until you consult with your healthcare provider.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dr. Cheskin. And thank you to everyone who's joining us. We're going to bring more Cheskin Chats for just wisdom and information on health and wellness. And you're welcome to contact the person who sent you this video if you'd like more information. Thank you again, Dr. Cheskin.
Thank you.